the day a squirrel was crowned king of Toulouse in the year 1217, in the sun-drenched city of Toulouse, where troubadours sang of impossible love and Cathar heretics whispered prayers to a god without flesh, Squirrel changed the course of French jurisprudence forever. His name was not recorded, for animals rarely earned names unless they committed treason or performed miracles. But this squirrel did both. It began on a Tuesday market day, when the air smelled of saffron, goat cheese, and simmering scandal. The Count of Toulouse, Raymond V., a man more accustomed to excommunication than breakfast, was holding court beneath a striped awning, adjudicating a dispute between two bakers over who had the right to sell bread shaped like doves. The church had banned such loaves after a particularly zealous baker in Avignon claimed his pastries wept holy oil during Lent. Into this solemn scene scampered the squirrel, not timidly, not in fear, but with the swagger of a nobleman late to his own coronation. He leapt onto the judge's bench, snatched the Count's ceremonial quill, a gift from the Pope himself, and scampered up the banner pole bearing the fleur-de-lis, where he perched like a furry herald of chaos. The crowd gasped. A child laughed. The Count turned purple. "Arrest that rodent," he bellowed. "He has insulted the dignity of the crown." And so began the trial of the seditious squirrel, a case that would echo through legal archives like the squeak of tiny, treasonous feet. A bailiff was dispatched with a net. The squirrel evaded capture for 3 days, allegedly hiding in the bell tower of St. Serene, where monks claimed he rang the noon bell twice by accident, or perhaps on purpose. His motives remained unclear. When finally caught, he was placed in a gilded birdcage and charged with lèse-majesté, theft of sacred instruments, and unlicensed acrobatics within 50 paces of sovereign authority. His defense? None, but the court, ever mindful of precedent and still haunted by the memory of the pig of Falaise, appointed a young clerk named Etienne as his advocate. Etienne, who had once argued that a chicken couldn't be guilty of blasphemy because it lacked a soul, now faced his greatest challenge. "Your Honor," he declared, voice trembling, "my client is not a rebel. He is a creature of instinct. He saw a feathered quill and mistook it for a mate. Is that not the oldest story in nature? Even kings have pursued love to their ruin." The Count snorted. "This is not love. This is espionage." That squirrel was signaling to the Cathars. No evidence supported this claim, but in 1217 suspicion was evidence enough. The trial lasted 6 hours. Witnesses testified that the squirrel had looked directly into the Countess' eyes with unnatural intelligence. Another swore it had mimicked the sign of the cross, though most agreed it was probably just scratching its ear. In the end, the squirrel was found guilty on all counts. But here's where history bends toward the absurd. Instead of execution, hanging was deemed too dignified. Burning too dramatic, the court sentenced the creature to kingship. Yes, kingship, the only fitting punishment for one who mocks sovereignty, declared the Count, is to burden him with it. And so, on the feast of St. Fiacre, the squirrel was crowned King Roderick A. of the nut-bearing realm, a satirical monarchy confined to the city's central oak tree. A tiny crown of gilded wire was fitted to his head. A proclamation was read: "All acorns within a 10-foot radius shall be his to command. None shall disturb his slumber before noon, and any dog that barks at him shall be fined 1 sausage." For 3 weeks the squirrel reigned in peace, fat, indifferent, and utterly unaware of his station. Children left him offerings of walnuts. Poets composed odes to his imperial tale. Even the local bishop blessed him, calling it a lesson in humility for all who wear crowns. Then one morning he vanished. Some said he fled to Spain. Others claimed he was assassinated by a jealous magpie. A few whispered that he'd been taken up to heaven, where God needed a new jester. But the law remained. The edict of the squirrel sovereign forbade any animal from ascending official furniture without written permission from the mayor, the bishop, and, curiously, a licensed minstrel. It also required that all future trials of beasts include at least one verse of poetry in the verdict. The law was never repealed. It simply gathered dust until 1348, when the Black Death arrived. In the chaos of plague, with priests dying and rats ruling the streets, a group of Tulasing citizens dug up the old decree and, half in grief, half in madness, elected a rat as interim mayor. His platform? More cheese, less death. He lasted 2 days. But the point had been made. In a world where faith wavered and reason fled, even rodents could wear crowns. And sometimes the only thing standing between order and madness was a piece of parchment signed by men who once put pigs on trial. The poisoner who loved perfume, meanwhile, in a quiet alley behind the Palais des Papes in Avignon, a woman named Isabeau mixed death into rose water. She was not a witch, not a noble, not even particularly evil. She was simply a perfumer with a talent for chemistry and a husband who beat her with liturgical precision. Every Sunday after Vespers, like clockwork, Isabeau's shop smelled of lavender, myrrh, and regret. Her customers included cardinals, courtesans, and the occasional assassin who appreciated subtlety. She sold love potions that did nothing, sleep tonics that worked too well, and on special request, eau de silence, a fragrance laced with just enough aconite to still a man's heart by dawn. She never poisoned her husband outright. That would be crude. Instead, she added a pinch of powdered henbane to his shaving soap. Over months, his hands trembled. His sermons grew slurred. One day, while blessing a loaf of bread, he collapsed. The physician called it God's will. Isabeau called it justice with patience. Word of her skill spread. Queens sent encrypted letters wrapped in silk. A duchess once arrived disguised as a nun, clutching a vial of tears her rivals, she claimed, collected during confession. Isabeau never asked why. She only asked, how fast, how painful, and will you weep at the funeral? Her greatest creation was Larmes de Sainte Claire, a clear liquid that smelled of rain and innocence. One drop in wine and the drinker would fall into a deep sleep, dreaming of childhood meadows, before never waking. The church eventually suspected her, but how could they prove it? Her hands were clean. Her ledgers listed only floral essences and medicinal tinctures, and every vial bore the papal seal forged, but convincing. When the Inquisition came knocking, she was ready. She drank her own concoction rather than face the rack. They found her slumped over her workbench, a half-finished bottle in hand, a faint smile on her lips. On her desk, they discovered a note. I did not kill for greed or power. I killed for peace. And if that is sin, then heaven is already full of murderers. Only theirs wear crowns and mitres. The inquisitors burned her shop. But someone, perhaps a grateful widow, saved one vial of Larmes de Sainte Claire. It passed through generations, rumored to have ended the reign of a tyrant in Florence and the marriage of a traitorous count in Burgundy. To this day, historians debate whether Isabeau was a monster or a martyr, but the perfumers of Avignon still whisper her name when mixing nightshade with neroli, because in the Middle Ages, even mercy sometimes wore the mask of murder. The last knight who believed, and then there was Sir Géraud of Limoges, the only crusader who returned from the Holy Land still chaste, sober, and poor. While his comrades bought vineyards with stolen relics and fathered children in 3 languages, Géraud came home with nothing but a rusted sword, a copy of the Gospels in Arabic, and a limp from a wound he refused to have blessed, claiming pain kept him humble. He built a hut on the edge of a forest and spent his days carving wooden saints for village churches. He never spoke of Jerusalem, not of the massacres, not of the brothels behind the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, not of the night he watched a Templar sell the true cross to a Venetian merchant for enough gold to buy a fleet. When pilgrims asked him about the glory of the Crusades, he'd say only, "I saw men who called themselves holy set fire to the house of God, and I wept not for the city, but for the lie." The local bishop called him mad. The villagers called him saintly. His old comrades called him a coward. But Géraud knew the truth. The real crusade wasn't to Jerusalem. It was against the darkness inside every man who claimed to serve light. On his deathbed, a scribe asked him to dictate his memoirs. Géraud shook his head. "Write this instead," he whispered. "Beware the man who carries a cross in one hand and counts coins with the other, for he has already sold what he claims to protect." He died that night, alone, under a sky full of stars he once thought were God's eyes watching over holy warriors. But in the end they were just stars cold, silent, and indifferent to the sins men sanctify. Epilogue: The bureaucrat's revenge. And so we return to where we began, the medieval bureaucrat. Not with a sword, not with a crown, but with a quill. For every absurd law, the pig's trial, the squirrel's crown, the ban on whistling after dusk, was born not from madness, but from the desperate need to impose order on a world drowning in chaos. The bureaucrat did not create these laws out of cruelty. He created them because something had to be done. When a goose caused a riot, you banned armored poultry. When a baker's bread looked like a crown, you regulated crusts. When trust vanished from royal courts, you chained the bells so they couldn't run away. In the end, the Middle Ages were not ruled by kings or popes, but by clerks who believed that if you could name a problem, you could control it, even if the problem was a drunken fish, even if the solution was nonsense. Because in a world where God was silent and death was certain, the only thing left to do was write it down and hope that the ink would outlive the madness. And sometimes it did.